There's a quiet truth about change that most people never really hear. Not because it's complicated, but because it feels almost too simple to take seriously. What separates the people who actually reshape their lives from the ones who stay stuck isn't talent. It isn't motivation. And it definitely isn't luck. Motivation drifts in like good weather and disappears just as fast. Talent comes and goes in waves. Opportunity rarely shows up at the exact moment you're ready for it. The real difference is much smaller, much more uncomfortable, and much more honest. People who grow follow their plan. Everyone else follows their mood. I don't say that to judge, I say it because I lived it. For years, my entire life was steered by how I felt in the moment. If I woke up confident, I worked toward my goals. If I woke up anxious, overwhelmed, or unsure, everything stopped. I'd tell myself I'd restart in a few days, or when things calm down, or when I feel ready again. It always sounded harmless. It always felt logical. But it cost me so much time, years spent waiting for feelings that never stayed long enough to build anything with. No one tells you this when you're young. Your emotions aren't supposed to be consistent. They rise, fall, shift, and contradict themselves. Some days you feel invincible. Other days you feel small or tired or heavy. That's being human. But when those shifting feelings decide your actions, your life starts to shift just as unpredictably. You make progress, then lose it. You feel hopeful, then discouraged. And suddenly you're looking at a life that hasn't really moved forward. Here's the part people rarely say out loud. Your feelings will lie to you. They'll tell you today doesn't matter, that skipping once is no big deal, that Monday will somehow be the perfect time to start again. But every time you follow your mood instead of your plan, you're not choosing rest. You're choosing a version of yourself you're trying to grow out of. Following your mood is easy. Following your plan is the beginning of change. There's a quiet trap almost everyone falls into. They're waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel confident, waiting for motivation to finally spark the beginning. And while they wait, life keeps moving, slipping past them. Other people, just as unsure, just as unprepared, start building their lives while they're still sitting in hesitation. What most people never hear is this: you will never feel fully ready. Not in the way you imagine. That perfect moment where doubt dissolves and motivation takes over, that moment doesn't exist. Readiness isn't a feeling, it's a choice. You don't feel like a runner first. You run first, and then the identity follows. Action creates the feeling. I see people delay everything. I'll start Monday. I'll begin in January. I'll wait until life is less stressful. But when Monday comes, nothing feels different. When January arrives, the doubts are still sitting right there, because the feeling they're waiting for isn't coming. It never was. The only thing that creates readiness is choosing to act despite the uncertainty. Your mood is temporary. Your commitment shouldn't be. And the more you show up when you don't feel ready, the stronger you become. You start proving to yourself moment by moment that you're not defined by your emotions. You're defined by what you choose to do with them. You can feel tired and still move. You can feel unsure and still take a step. And each time you do, you build evidence that you're capable, grounded, reliable, and that evidence changes you. There's something we tend to overlook. Inconsistency doesn't just slow you down, it slowly erodes you. Every time you make a promise to yourself and break it, something shifts. A tiny crack forms in your self-trust, and those cracks add up. You say you'll wake up early, but don't. You say you'll start the project, but push it aside. You say this week will be different, but it feels just like the last. It's not just about missing tasks. You start teaching yourself that your word isn't reliable. That's the hidden cost. The quiet loss of confidence, the subtle shame, the sense that you're capable of more but keep choosing less. The problem isn't a lack of willpower. It's that you've accidentally practiced quitting. You've repeated it enough times that it becomes the comfortable choice. And slowly it leaks into everything. Your goals, your relationships, your sense of self. Because once your commitments feel optional, you stop believing in your own ability to follow through. I realized that every time I chose comfort over my plan, I wasn't just delaying progress. I was becoming someone I didn't admire. And that forced me to ask the hard question. If I can't trust myself to follow through, how can I expect anything to change? The truth was simple. I couldn't. Nothing changes until your word starts to mean something, especially to yourself. The beautiful thing is that trust can be rebuilt. Every time you keep a promise, even a small one, you strengthen that inner bond. You rewrite the story of who you are. And that changes everything. So if feelings can't be trusted and motivation wavers and waiting to feel ready is a trap, what do you rely on? Your plan. Not a vague idea, not a flexible intention that bends with your mood. A real plan. Clear, specific, decided in advance. A plan is more than guidance. It's a commitment made by the version of you who was thinking clearly, so you don't have to negotiate with the version of you who's tired or discouraged. When you wake up overwhelmed, that's when your brain makes the worst decisions. It chooses ease. It rationalizes. It tells you maybe later. But if the plan is already made, if yesterday you decided what today would look like, you don't have to think about it. You simply follow the plan. And there's power in that simplicity. There's relief in not having to renegotiate your future every morning. Willpower fades. Motivation comes and goes. But a plan stays steady. Take something simple, like working out at 6 a.m. If it's in your plan, not dependent on mood or sleep, you get up, you move. Not because you feel like it, but because it's written into your day. And over time, something shifts. You stop arguing with yourself. You stop wasting emotional energy debating what's already been decided. The more consistently you follow your plan, the more momentum you build. Consistency compounds, quietly, powerfully. Pressure doesn't create discipline. Structure does. Let me say this gently. There will be days when sticking to the plan feels almost impossible. Days when everything inside you wants to stop. When life feels heavy and discouraging. When you're exhausted in a way that goes deeper than sleep. Those are the days that matter most. Anyone can show up when they feel inspired. But the days that shape you, the days that transform you, are the days when you show up despite everything in you wanting to quit. I remember one morning about 3 weeks into a new routine. I was exhausted. Mentally, physically, all of it. My alarm went off at 5:30 and I just laid there bargaining with myself. But eventually I got up. The workout was slow. It wasn't impressive. But afterwards, sitting in the quiet, I realized something important. I'd won. Not against the workout, against the part of me that wanted to stay small. Motivation makes you feel good before you start. Discipline makes you feel proud once you finish. And each time you show up on the hard days, you separate your old life from your new one a little more. Those tiny victories stack. One turns into two. A week becomes a month. And suddenly you become someone who doesn't break their own momentum. That's when everything shifts. We all tell ourselves stories. Little explanations that sound harmless but quietly hold us back. I'm not a morning person. I work better under pressure. I need to be in the right mindset first. They feel like facts, but they're usually just comfortable excuses dressed up as identity. And once you build your identity around those limitations, you start protecting them. You defend them. I used to insist that I was just a disorganized person. And you can guess what that belief created. Stress, chaos, missed deadlines. It wasn't who I was. It was simply a story I'd repeated long enough to believe. That's what happens to most people. They live inside stories they never question. But you're not your past choices. You're not every time you quit. You're whatever you choose next. Some excuses even disguise themselves as wisdom. I'm being realistic. I don't want to burn out. I'm listening to my body. Sometimes that's true, but often it's fear. Fear of discomfort, fear of effort, fear of discovering you're capable of more than you imagine. Most of the misery in people's lives doesn't come from trying too hard. It comes from not trying at all. Once you see the lies for what they are, you realize something freeing. You were never stuck. You were simply standing still and calling it fate. The most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And most of us treat ourselves in ways we would never treat someone we love. We break promises. We cancel on ourselves. We abandon our own plans the moment they become uncomfortable. Imagine doing that to a friend. How long would that relationship last? But we do it to ourselves constantly. The good news is self-trust can be rebuilt. And it starts small. One promise, one simple doable commitment. Drink a glass of water when you wake up. Make your bed. Walk for 5 minutes. It almost doesn't matter what the promise is. What matters is that you keep it. Because every time you follow through, you strengthen the bond between who you are and who you want to be. I did this myself. I chose one non-negotiable morning workouts and I honored it, even on the days I didn't want to. And after a few months, something shifted inside me. I didn't see myself as someone who struggled with discipline anymore. I saw myself as someone who follows through. That identity shift changed everything. So choose one thing, just one. Start today. Keep the promise for 7 days. Not because it will change your entire life overnight, but because it will change how you see yourself. And once that changes, everything else becomes possible. So here we are at the part most people skip. The moment where the truth becomes a choice. You already know the difference between people who grow and people who stay where they are. It isn't talent. It isn't motivation. It's simply this. They follow their plan, not their mood. And now the question is quietly settling in front of you. What are you going to do with that? This isn't about being perfect or never having a bad day again. It's about refusing to let your mood steer your life any longer. It's about choosing your future over the comfort of the moment. You don't need to wait for the right time. You don't need to feel ready. You just decide. You draw a small line between who you were yesterday and who you're becoming now. And you start with one thing, one promise you can keep today. Something small, clear, and real. Write it down. Let it be your plan. And tomorrow, when you don't feel like following it, don't negotiate. Just show up anyway. That's the shift. That's the part that changes your life in ways motivation never could. Not a dramatic transformation, just steady proof to yourself, one day at a time, that you can be trusted. And when you stack those days, momentum appears, confidence grows, your life begins to move. So if you're listening to this right now, let this be your moment. Choose the plan, not the mood. That single choice is the doorway to every version of you you've been trying to reach. And if you want more guidance, more calm space to reconnect with yourself, or more reminders like this, go ahead and subscribe, like, or follow the channel. It helps me keep creating these moments for you, and it keeps you close to the mindset you're building.